Welcome to episode 5 or 6 of the Brothers of Liberty, everybody. I'm Jacob, and this is Cody.
How's it going?
All right, this episode is going to be an election preview for the most part, the day before the election that we are recording this as of right now. You know, we're going to shoot the shit for a little bit, and then we'll just basically go into some predictions and just generally see how the election's probably going to go.
I think, oh man, you know, it's been wonderful. I'm taking this class on the Civil War right now, and I've always been a little bit of a history buff, but I never really got into the Civil War. And I gotta say, it's utterly fascinating in the ramifications. I think we were shooting this shit about this the other night.
Oh yeah, dude.
Some of the long-term ramifications, and also fuck Buchanan, one of the worst presidents we ever had.
I'm starting my episode on him tomorrow, so it's going to be fun.
Make sure you get into how, towards the end of 1860, he actually began to try and secret arms to southern states.
Mm-hmm. I'll get into that. And
you know, like the guy is, like, we were just doing readings on him, and then I was doing a whole bunch of research on my own, and it also brings me around to something that I always say is fuck Woodrow Wilson. Because I know he was born right before the Civil War, right? But
yeah,
there's this whole big thing about like the lost cause ideology and all that, about how, you know, some historians tried to claim that the South wasn't a part of slavery. I mean, wasn't fighting the war, the secession over slavery, and like he is one of the big reasons that became a thing. As it turns out, 'cause he's one of the first PhD recipients in history in America, and then screened a KKK movie in the White House and was like stated as saying it's all true. So yeah, it's just been because, you know, of course, you know, you get into like rabbit holes and stuff like that whenever you start looking in with something so historically complex as that, and you wind yourself up, you know, like spending 3 hours trying to figure out what the hell, like why people thought that it wasn't about slavery.
Yeah, I feel you. Honestly, the more you do this and the more you do these deep dives that I've been doing like crazy, and I don't know how I have time to do it since I started my clinical rotation again. It's going good, but, you know, I'm just tired. But, you know, it's fascinating because I just finished Franklin Pierce. I'm probably going to upload him.
I almost went to a high school that was named after him.
You know, Franklin Pierce, I feel so bad for him in so many ways, man. Like,
I mean, I honestly don't know too much about him other than that he was the guy before Buchanan and the guy after Taylor. And that he was just kind of this intermediary, you know, president that was a Democrat.
Well, he's what I would... Well, I'll put it to you this way. He's a very complicated human being. If you look on any presidential list, he's generally always going to be rated lower than Buchanan, so I'll put it that way. He's single-handedly one of the worst presidents. He's the biggest reason why for, I guess you could say, Bleeding Kansas. So, you know, that's...
Yeah, I mean, he allowed Bleeding Kansas, but Bleeding Kansas was going to happen regardless.
Oh, no, yeah, but he specifically... as a presidential and executive leader, that was all Stephen Douglas. Don't get me wrong, but he's not helping in any way, shape, and form as the president. And a lot of the things that he did
during the whole controversy with the two separate constitutions. I'm forgetting the exact name of it. He was one of the people who tried to force through Congress the pro-slave Constitution, and it was a whole thing where like 60-70% of the state didn't want slaves, and the pro-slave and the anti-slave side participated in separate elections, had separate conventions and separate state constitutions, and so it was a big political thing. Like, well, why are we like it? Like, when it's also amazing that this becomes a thing because it just shows that the political dominance, even though they were, you know, losing less and less support, that the Democrats had in the era, right? Because a minority of the states were slaveholding, but because they kept electing Democrats, they kept...
Well, in fairness, when you look at Democrats weren't just in the South. In fact, there was probably at least 2 or 3 states.
You had the Northern Democrats, who were the labor people,
and
were the immigrants.
Yeah, they were states' rights all the way. Fundamentally, I mean, New Hampshire was a Democratic stronghold, and that was because of Franklin Pierce and his father for basically the better part of 2 or 3 decades that followed the whole Jacksonian ideal. But
the Jacksonian ideal was just that people should be masters of their own domain.
Well, yeah, it's just
which didn't jive well with New York City.
It's popular sovereignty, democracy. Like say what you will, Jackson's the beginning of, I guess, a modern interpretation of the working man's democracy. So
the Democrats had power, just like there were Whigs down into Kentucky and Virginia and Tennessee, and not much deeper south than that. But the Democrats, they still viewed themselves as liberal, even then. I mean, everybody says that the parties swapped and all this stuff, and I have huge rants on that. But people like Woodrow Wilson, so president in the 1910s, was claiming that he was a liberal, but his version of liberalism was using centralized government authority in order to protect the new freedoms while he instituted federal Jim Crow. So, it's just all they had this party platform of they were anti-bank, they were pro-worker, and for some weird reason, they didn't want the states to spend money to do improvements, but that's because of the bank. But they really, really played heavily, for a century. Their, political enforcers were the Irish. The way that the Democrats now have, the black vote and stuff like that, well, it was the Irish for a century. So, I mean, in the big divide up until Lincoln was the free things like, the Northern Democrats weren't particularly anti-slavery or pro-slavery. They stood on the platform of the Freeport Doctrine and stuff like that. And, the Dred Scott case, which is the worst Supreme Court decision in our history.
That's probably the one thing you can always say negatively about Jackson. It's just his Supreme Court justice nominations ultimately led to that. So
Taney was a massive piece of shit because he made decisions that were in complete violation of the Constitution
all the time. I know, and a whole bunch of them.
And that's why to this day, we had the conversation about Amy Coney Barrett and originalists and stuff like that. I'm strictly an originalist because we have historical examples of people like that. They viewed themselves as progressive in the fact that they were using the Constitution as a living document at that time to protect the things that they wanted. Right? And it goes on the parties never swapped, man. The only thing the Democrats were always collectivists, and the Whigs and then the Republicans were always individual liberty, industry people. It's been that same way. We still live in that dichotomy now. The only thing that swapped was that the Democrats started propping up the black vote after, with the more social programs they implemented, the more they got the black vote, and then they went hardcore into that.
Yeah, you don't get the Gilded Age without the Republican Party, so, it is what it is. And then you don't get the whole progressive era really without majority of the Democrats, which is funny.
They weren't... Yeah.
Right, I think it's funny because I think the one actual president who was real fucking hardcore against the Democrats was Grover Cleveland. I think that's really hilarious, in my opinion. He might as well just be a Republican, but...
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know much about Grover Cleveland, but...
Dude, Grover Cleveland's kind of a badass when you really look at him. I don't know where I would rank him as a president, but there's a reason why he served 2 non-consecutive terms. And
yeah, that guy.
and it's it's fascinating.
I mean, I think a big problem that we had coming out of the Civil War, and this is still stuff that we're feeling today, 170 years later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the Union won the war, but they lost Reconstruction, and
they gave up on it too.
Well, I mean, it's with.
Don't get me wrong. I know it's
the political might, the political capital that Lincoln would have had to try and do it moderately, because as much as the Republicans were right, end slavery, give the black people the rights and all that kind of stuff, the way that they went about, because they were pissed. In 2 years in the midterms after Lincoln died, the Congress that was elected had enough majority of radical, fuck the South Republicans. That I mean, this plays a little bit into the whole like lost cause narrative, where they talk about how bad it was punitive, but there is some reality in that, as much as they like to say a bunch of bullshit, because the guy that was put in charge of the South was one that viewed himself as having dictatorial power. And when you're viewing an area that just lost a rebellious, treasonous war, and you're trying to re-ingratiate them in without mass bloodshed, which was the norm for all of history. The norm for all of history in a rebellion like that is you go in and you kill everybody. You kill all the politicians and the thought leaders and all that, so you end it. Well, we didn't do that. Grant and Lincoln didn't do that, because they wanted to try and bring the states back in. And they just, I want to say they bungled it. And I mean, like, we were kind of having a conversation the other day. Lincoln's idea was, he always thought about, sending the black population back because he didn't feel that they could successfully be integrated into Southern society. And, 170 years later, and we're still having problems with it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but one of his other ideas was the 40 acres and a mule to send people out to the territory, the territory we got from Mexico. Now there's like you and I were kind of saying, like, there's a whole lot of ifs, ands, and buts that kind of go into that, like how many people would go, how many people would stay. And I'm personally, like, when I look at that kind of thing, like, if we had taken the thing of, like, let's designate all of Colorado, Utah, and, well, maybe not Utah because the Mormons lived there, but, like, designated large swaths of the territories as, hey, you get this as your reparation, and view it as that. Like, you lived as a slave, the reparation is you get your own big fat plot of land to do what you want to do on it. That would have eased up so much of the tensions that existed. Like, the KKK wouldn't have been a thing. Jim Crow wouldn't have been a thing. We would have seen, and that was Lincoln's plan. So that's why we were kind of shooting the shit the other day. But Lincoln being assassinated made Reconstruction and reintegration and all of that kind of stuff so incredibly difficult, because he had the respect of everybody and of the population of all this stuff, and his his VP did not. He could have had used the ability, because the Republicans being pissed off over the Civil War, and how could you not be pissed off over the Civil War? The North lost like some 300,000 people. That's if we're looking at they lost like 1/20th of their population in that war. The South lost like 1/10. Just these massive numbers, right? How could you not be pissed off when the South started it, right? They seceded and then they bombed Fort Sumter.
A lot of sons died.
Yeah, a lot. So of course they're going to be mad. Of course they're going to be like, "Oh, you don't want the slaves to vote? Well, fuck you. Yes, they are." So it was, and especially because you had this culture of the North for half a century at that point being felt like they'd been pushed around by the slave power. So it was their comeuppance. And like the tensions, man, would have just been absolutely ungodly, especially after Sherman's march through Georgia. Because he marched from Tennessee to Georgia through South Carolina, and they took parts of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that total war concept where, like, we're going to crush their spirit. So you had these, and I mean, while historically there's not a lot of proof that he did a lot of really bad stuff, there was the camp followers that were paramilitary organizations that did do bad stuff. Right?
That's war, baby.
Yeah, so you get like the strain between the two was incredible. But anyway, I think that's probably enough with our random shoot the shit. I've just been getting super into history, and I know you've been doing the other things, so there's not many people that I can like rant about. But I've been so like into the Civil War stuff right now, especially with Grant. You know, oh look, I'm gonna win Shiloh, march down, take Vicksburg, come back. Lincoln's gonna give me a bottle of whiskey, and then I'm gonna go, fuck it, I'll beat Lee. And then he, the Overland Campaign, and just eventually like grinds the South into the dirt. So I've been reading a ton of books. I've been letting my other classes go to the side because I've been reading too much of the Civil War stuff.
Civil War. I mean, the era. But I would probably say the previous 20 years, the Mexican-American War is really fascinating. I mean,
the most fascinating period would be the 1850s.
1850s right. Is horrifying.
Oh yeah,
I understand what you're talking about. I mean, but I will say that the Mexican-American War really sets up most of the 1850s. Unfortunately, that's the problem.
Well, I mean, it does because it gives the conversation of slavery in the territories.
Well, that's why I did end up doing a 3.5-hour episode on James K. Polk, was because of the Mexican-American War and the eventual fallout that's going to lead to the Compromise of 1850 and 50 other different things that are going to start occurring.
That set the stage for the 1850s and everything that led to the Civil War. It set the stage, right?
This is fascinating. Polk's so fucking insane sometimes. I don't even know how I feel about him, to be quite honest with you. But anyways, sorry.
No, when I want to collaborate with you when you get to Lincoln and Grant.
Sure, we can do
because Grant going from being a failed businessman drunkard to the 5-star general of the Grand Army of the Republic and then president is fascinating.
H.W. Brands does a pretty good biography on Ulysses S. Grant. We should read that one.
I've got one that I picked up that I'm reading of him right now.
Okay.
And then we ought to do one on the different parts of the Civil War when we get around to it.
That'll be a while, but we'll do it, right?
Yeah. I just like my favorite thing is the Battle of Antietam. Because of, like, Lee's special order getting intercepted, McClellan still almost fumbling it, Stonewall taking Harper's Ferry, and then that giving the Union just enough of a victory to do the Emancipation Proclamation, which kept England, who still into the late stages of the war was making ships for the Confederacy, from bringing the European powers in. So, like, literally,
England's been doing a whole bunch of shit they've been salty for hundreds of years. They're still
well, I mean, there was the Trent Affair. There was, we saved their ass a couple times in the 20th century. They're a little bit more with us now. But all right, let's get to the election stuff.
So
I think I could probably do just hours on history. So
I know. So the 2020 election. Dun dun dun.
Let me start with saying one thing: the polls are garbage.
Well, of course.
But statistical methodology, their polls are garbage. So
there's actually
what's that?
There's actually a really good book that, if you want to know how to predict every single election, it's actually written by I forgot what the book's called. It's written by Richard Nixon's campaign manager during his 1968 presidential campaign. It's fucking insane. He goes basically from like the Hungarian immigrants and the Hungarian population, the trends that they'll specifically vote for in this specific area, and it's like, interesting, and how Nixon built his whole campaign on that. And
yeah, well, I mean, right now, one of the things we're seeing is the Hispanic vote going to Trump. I mean, it's not going to be like the same like, hammer stick wielding that the Democrats get with the black vote, right? Mm-hmm. But the Cuban population has always been for Trump. For the Republicans, because they don't like to touch anything that gets close to socialism and communism. Mm-hmm. They fled that. And now you're seeing a lot of these waves of like Venezuelan immigrants and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, that's why in Texas it's 50-50. There are a lot of people that are Hispanic, or that, I mean, I think there was this one poll that I saw that like 75% of them don't want to see themselves as an other. They just want to see themselves as being integrated into general society. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot of them that aren't going to play on the identity politics stuff. And it's, culturally, they most of them are like, a lot of people, which they're pro 2A, they want a good job, and they're toss up on abortion, which is why everybody's like, oh, the Texas sleeping giant, the Hispanic community is going to wake up. It's like, and do what? They like their guns in church. They're heavily Catholic, But so
Cody, real quick,
yeah.
What would you say are the 3 biggest issues that are facing America right now that people are going to vote on specifically?
So specifically right now,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. People are going to vote as a referendum on Trump. Okay, so Trump's policies are fucking astounding. I need to stop cussing. His policies are astounding. Even CNN admitted that the economy that we were getting is amazing. He managed to reduce our CO2 production while still pulling out of Paris. The trade war with China brought back millions of manufacturing, well, not millions, but hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. Mm-hmm. Right? He started doing whole bunches of stuff to combat human trafficking, which is another reason why the Hispanic vote.
Damn, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and our economic numbers are better than any Obama year. That's crazy, fam.
Right. I mean, so we're back up right now because of the 33% GDP growth. We're back up to like 80% of where we were before it.
Numbers too. That's fucking insane.
I mean, it just shows the strength of the economy that he set up, because it was really beginning to snowball. First, wage growth. But all that said is, there has never been a more aggressive media that also lies, just blatantly twists things and lies, than except for maybe the Southern media against Lincoln, right? Never has it been so utterly contentious.
I guess.
You have there's 6 major news agencies, and that there's 6 major ones in America. ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox. Mm-hmm. I think I got all of them. 5 of the 6 are anti-Trump, avidly, and make stuff up. And a lot of the new age media is also anti-Trump, and they make stuff up. I think there was this. I saw this tweet. It was something that Huffington Post tweeted right after the election. It was like, somewhere there might be a tape of Trump in an elevator doing something wrong. What that something is and where that tape could be, nobody knows. And they're seriously like as if this is like Trump might have done something in an elevator somewhere, guys. Mm-hmm. It's if the media treated him the way that they treated Obama, or the way that they treated most presidents through history, he would be rolling to a re-election. He might get 50 states.
Yep,
right? Because he's literally bringing peace to the Middle East, and he's bringing peace to the Balkans, which we collectively know nothing about, even though we put troops on the ground in Yugoslavia in the 90s. Right?
I got you.
That alone,
I was just asking specifically, number one is economy, number two is healthcare. Kind of thing.
I mean, but at the same time,
I get what you're talking about.
I think right now we're at a very bad point where we're just finally starting to fight back against China, and I think the world's finally coming to realize what exactly selling out to China has done. Now, some countries like Germany and France have done a little bit better of a job, although Germany played themselves when they were the best high-speed train producers in the world, and then they let a Chinese company come in and learn from them, and then the Chinese company started doing the same shit for half the price. Mm-hmm. So people are really, really starting to see, we need to go back to controlled trade. Right? Free trade is great, but free trade doesn't work if I'm forced to pay my workers $20 an hour and you're allowed to pay your workers 20 cents an hour. Mm-hmm. Right? It doesn't work if I'm spending extra 5% per product to ensure that it's environmentally and safely made, where you're just polluting the environment. You know what I mean?
I got you.
So, I mean, that's why the USMCA put penalties on countries that didn't pay workers at least $16 an hour for major products like cars to really prevent. So right now, even though those are huge major issues, peace and our continued presence in the Middle East, trade with China, and the immigration and stuff like that, which I view as the big issues, and healthcare, which Trump still has a good record on. I mean, he is at war with the pharmaceutical companies right now, mm-hmm. getting drug prices dropped and all that stuff. But there's not much else he can do without a legislature that's willing to work with him. Mm-hmm. This election is pro or anti-Trump.
So let me ask you this then: who do you think will win? What is your?
I think Trump will win. I honestly think the popular vote probably won't go to him because California and New York, but primarily California. But I think he has a good chance, much better chance than last time of maybe even also getting the popular vote. We'll see. I have him getting at least 300 electoral votes, and he actually doesn't need the polls to be that wrong to do that. There are paths where he just needs the polls to be off by their margin of error for him to win. But that goes into polls, and the polls are garbage, because if you look at a lot of the models, there's two big things that stand out to me when I look at the numbers. A lot of these polling sample sizes are way too small, right? To get a good sample size, you need at least 1,200 people, and a lot of these big groups are using 800. And then a lot of their models, I think, are garbage and based off of old information. Like back in 2016, it was like 30 to 27 for percentage-wise of registered voters that were Democrat and Republican, and now it's 27 to 28 Democrat to Republican. Mm-hmm. So their models haven't adjusted, and then they said after 2016 that they fixed it, and then they jacked up 2018, right? Groups like Trafalgar were the only ones that called the Florida governor race. Everybody was off by like 5 to 10 points.
Well, so I think there's 3 different scenarios for me, and well, first and foremost, there is only one path for Biden to win, and that's with the most egregious levels of voter fraud we've ever seen in this country. And
I mean, I wouldn't
the Trump turnout and Trump voters not turning out on election day, but that's highly unlikely, though.
CBS just released a thing. They called it the Republican surge, which basically said that based on other polls, which I will say are garbage, if the number of Trump supporters that say that they're going to come out percentage-wise and all this stuff actually come out, he wins, and that's just based on the current number of mail-in votes that they've seen that, based on party affiliation. But that also doesn't account Democrats that change their vote to Trump or Republicans that change their vote. I doubt, with 97% approval rating in the Republican Party, I highly doubt that the Republicans that went and voted for Trump wouldn't be voting for Trump.
I know, that's what I'm just saying. I'm just saying that's a what if, and it's probably not going to happen. My other two, the most likely is the reality that everything's going to go the way it is, and Trump will probably win maybe 340 electoral votes. It's a coin flip for the popular votes.
I mean, I think Biden still has a good chance. It's a lot of it is going to depend on voter turnout and just how absolutely fuckery the voting, the mail-in voting stuff is. Because, there is absolutely no way that there's not going to be huge legal fights, because when states like Pennsylvania, which is the keystone in a lot of people's mind, do things like say, hey, you won't discount votes that have signature mismatches, and we're going to count votes we get after Election Day.
Well, they've kind of figured that one out a little bit. I think they're going to separate the ones that are on actual Election Day and then after Election Day.
That's what Republican lawyers are trying to get an injunction to force in Pennsylvania tomorrow. So the Republicans won a Supreme Court legal case in North Carolina, but not in Pennsylvania. But that was because there was an 8-8 split on the one in Pennsylvania, and it was mainly like, yo, you guys are right, but because this came from a state court, or this came from a federal court, not a state court, we can't really, there's things that we can't do. It needs to be done else. And now that Amy Coney Barrett's in, there won't be a tie, because a tie in the Supreme Court just sets things back to what the lower court ruling was. And of course, lower court rulings, there's a reason why California has spent $50 million on lawsuits against Trump in the Ninth Circuit specifically. Mm-hmm. And that's because of, the Ninth Circuit will go, oh, Constitution says A, well, we'll do B. Because. And stuff like that, so.
Oh, Barrett. But there's also a genuine scenario too. So just let me finish it real quick. There's also, I actually think that could possibly happen too, which I didn't feel like it could happen until I drove by in Santee and I saw a big ass group block party in Mission Gorge of a shit ton of Trump supporters waving American flags, probably about 1,000 strong, and I was like, oh, interesting.
There have been Beverly Hills Trump rallies. I guess. So. But I don't think he has the possibility of winning California.
No, he's not going to win California. What I'm trying to say though is, if this Republican surge exceeds some relative, because just from some numbers I've seen, it's actually trending so much more aggressively than I thought they would, to a point where he's probably going to win basically a majority of the supposed swing states. He could probably win 400 electoral votes, and the House goes back to the Republicans easily, instead of barely. I guess I'm trying to say.
I mean, I could give a shit about the Republicans in general, because a lot of the Republicans right now, I don't think we're going to see the full effects of Trump Republicanism in the House until at least the midterms, if not 2024. Mm-hmm. Right? You're getting a bunch more of them. These young, we're not these economic libertarians that dominate the Republican Party now. So,
all right. Sorry. Well, let's just go from
state by state. Washington, what's your call?
Oh, that's probably gonna go Biden. I think Seattle is just too big of a stronghold, and there's too many cities there.
County is too big. I mean. Mm-hmm. You can have the conversation Chaz shopping the riots, but they're the left coast. I'm just going to give all of the West Coast to.
Exactly. Same with Oregon and California. Mm-hmm. Those are going to be even like, don't get me wrong, there's enough voters hypothetically to win the state for Republicans, but Democrats have strongholds there, and they're not going to let it go to Trump or any Republican. I promise you that.
No, I don't. I think that it would take. I think the tide is beginning to turn to make those states a little bit more, admissible. But I doubt.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I'm not going to be shocked if there's going to be a couple of House seats that flip in California and Washington specifically.
Even in that, you have to examine the reason why 14 seats got flipped in California from Republican to Democrat last time is because right before the midterms, the state legislature in California legalized ballot harvesting, and this is how there was tons and tons of seats across California and across some of the other states that did it that were Republican at first, and then miraculously mail-in votes kept coming in after Election Day, and they turned them. A lot of that happened in California because people went out, and you know how it is to register to vote in California. You don't even need to live here. You don't need to prove that you live here to do it. It's ridiculous. So people went out. It's ballot harvesting, and it's what Democrats tend to do under the guise of limiting voter. We can't have voter suppression. Is they go out and they remove all security around elections. I'm sorry. I don't think that people that aren't engaged in the political process should be voting. It's your civic. If you're not willing to go through your civic duty and vote and figure out what's going on and pay attention, then you shouldn't be voting. It's just because you have the right to doesn't mean you should. If you know nothing and you're not paying attention, you're not making an informed decision. And the Democrats are really, really good at finding and exploiting poor and immigrant low information voters across California to do that.
And that's why they've won. But things are changing, and that's why I think it's going to be very interesting. But
yeah,
anyway,
we'll see how the changes in the Hispanic community. I think California is locked in. It's going to be 5 to 10 years before California changes, and that's because of the economics in California being so destructively bad right now.
That's the only way.
The same limit. California is 49th in education, and they are number 1 in poverty. The same metric that says if California was its own country, that it would have the 6th largest economy. It would also be the poorest economy because the number of people in poverty in California.
Yep.
And it's not like they've had any political opposition. It's a monoparty. All right. Well, enough about California. We would be on that all night. All right. So Idaho, red.
Idaho's very red. Montana's very red.
No, Montana's got a Democrat governor.
Yeah, but they're gonna probably vote Trump.
I'm gonna put them in likely, right?
You can put them in light red, yeah, if you want.
But yeah, Wyoming light red, Utah red. Red. Now two that are in contention. Nevada is normally light blue. I'm gonna leave them there right now, but some polling information says that there's a good chance Nevada swaps because of the lockdowns, right?
That just depends. I don't know. I just think there's just going to be too many issues with just so many fucking stories of just votes on the street. I just think that they're going to figure some way out to keep, Nevada blue.
It's the same. Arizona is red. Trafalgar polling has them winning, and if I'm going to go with a poll, I'm going to go with Trafalgar. And
it's going red. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Colorado also blue.
Yes.
Which that might be that they're gonna the Republicans are gonna lose a Senate seat there. So that's whatever. New Mexico blue. North Dakota red. South Dakota red. Nebraska is one of those weird ones because they split their votes. So there's going to be 2 red. In my opinion, I think it's likely to all 3 of them go red, but I think it's a safer bet to say 2 go red, 1 go blue. Kansas, Oklahoma, and especially Texas are all red.
100% red.
this Texas is a swing state. You've got to be kidding yourself. After Biden's like the bulk of like a huge portion of the economy in Texas is the oil and gas industry. So Biden going, I'm gonna, especially with how politically active Texans are, them going, I'm gonna shut down the oil and gas industry. Even the Democrats in Houston are going, dude, what, bro? Like, because they vote blue for the union, and like they don't vote blue for that. Like if you go, yeah. So Minnesota, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
We can just do the north later. Just north and northeast. Let's just south real quick.
Yeah, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia.
That's all.
And then South Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, and West Virginia. That's all red. Right.
What do you think about Virginia? I don't know how I feel.
Virginia's blue as fuck, dude. So I know they only swapped recently, but so many people have been moving into the liberal suburbs there. Like when you look at the number of donations that have been going to Biden from Virginia, the suburbs, it's astounding. So while there's technically a chance of a lot of these people going, nah, fuck it, like the proximity to Washington, D.C. and the cesspool of the political actors and media that hate them and all of the people that work around that has just eked its way into Virginia, and I'm going to say Virginia's blue. North Carolina is red. And Florida, there's a whole lot of stuff. Like Miami-Dade right now is up on Republican votes over Democrat votes, and that's amazing.
Florida's going to go red.
Yeah, I'll assuredly say that. And then Ohio is that they were like there's a toss up on Ohio. No, Ohio's red.
So is Indiana. Iowa's going to be red.
Yeah, people were like, "Oh, there's polls that says Iowa could swing." It's like, yeah, and then now there's polls from the same people saying Iowa's up 6. No, Iowa produces corn and corn alone, and Trump gave corn farmers $28 billion from the tariffs because of the hit that they took from the trade war. They're going for Trump. Like, you also don't have small town Iowa produce 20,000 people at Trump rallies. Well, so New York is definitely blue. New Jersey, blue. Maryland, Delaware, blue. Vermont, blue. Everywhere up there except for I think New Hampshire could be going red, and I think Maine, which is another one of those ones with the split districts.
Maine's going red. There's no.
I think that they get one of them going blue. Right now, this has this 190 to Biden 252 Trump. Right. So here is where it's going to get tricky. So Minnesota, the big thing, the Iron Range in Minnesota, which went blue last time, is
if Trump wins the Iron Range,
yeah, and then he wins all but one county, and I don't want to go out on a limb and say that Minnesota will turn, but it is so very close.
If Minnesota turns, then he's going to get the entire North End. It's apparently going to be trending that way. I forgot why.
By the way, we're Alaska red, Hawaii blue. What the important thing about changing the numbers with that is it puts Trump at 255, which means I think Trump is winning Michigan because Trafalgar has them. Him is winning in Michigan right now.
He's probably going to win Michigan, probably strongly, and he's going to win Wisconsin. That's a big.
I don't think he's going to win Wisconsin.
I'm pretty positive he's going to win Wisconsin.
We'll see, but even then, if he wins Michigan, he wins where we are right now. He's at 271.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He only needs to win like just one or two of those states, and he's good for the most part.
So if he gets everything I've said, he doesn't like Pennsylvania won't matter. Right, and right now, like Michigan, the in-person voting is tied. It's effectively tied. And within that state, like 69% of Republicans are like, I'm going to vote in person on the day. He's going to take that, and that puts him at 271. But I think, Missouri is kind of a toss-up. I kind of think, I think it'll go red, but I'm just going to say that one might be, it goes blue. Illinois is obviously blue. And this is where, to me, the post race is going to be really decided. Is going to be how Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania go. Because let's say Biden pulls all those and it's 264 to 271. Oh, DC gets their 3. I forgot about that. That's blue as shit. Let's say it's 267 to 271. We're going to see a lot of bullshit. Lot of bullshit. But I personally think, Pennsylvania, with the size of crowds that Trump, 57,000 people in small town Pennsylvania at this last rally. Pennsylvania's going Trump. And with the riots in Philly, Pennsylvania's going Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And Wisconsin, what is your take on Wisconsin?
Well, there's been a whole bunch of, I don't even want to say Norwegian working class people, but part of it is me basing it off of that book that I was just telling you about, and also a lot of trending data. And this is more just because in the last week and a half or so, a couple of because I follow a whole bunch of different people. Main people I follow is that People's Pundit, and they've actually been kind of freaking out in a lot of ways positively, because they like Wisconsin's just trending red in several of the counties in Wisconsin, specifically heavily blue suburban counties, to where it's actually a bit of a toss-up 50-50 in most of those places, surprisingly. So I'm not saying it's going to be like a hard red, but he might win by 2 points in Wisconsin. I'm not going to blink an eye. Instead of half a point. Yeah. So, and so if you asked me this like 2 days ago, I probably would have said it's that one, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. They're all kind of coin flips, to be honest with you, in Pennsylvania. But everything has only down a percentage in Wisconsin, a percentage or two, and that's a state that says 3% of people are going to vote for Kanye West on a poll. So, and it's a poll. And the truth is, I don't trust anything, so I'm kind of just going with a lot of generalizations, because generalizations. Yeah, like here's the truth: like Trump's probably just going to win just because of the reality of voter registration, voter election day turnouts. Just a whole bunch of different barometers. So do you think Minnesota's also going to go red? To be honest, I don't know. It hasn't been as strong, but it's trending that way. Today, it's aggressively trending that way. A lot of the margins that he lost by in 2016, he's not going to lose as badly by any stretch. Like, I think it was like in Minneapolis, he lost like 62 to 38% in. I don't think in Minneapolis this go around he's going to lose by that much. No, it's more like at this point like 54, 50, like 46. Especially with the Iron Range coming out with him, I really think that he's going to have. Yeah. He has a strong chance, but Minnesota was the one state that Reagan didn't win. So that was Mondale's. I know, but like they have a habit of being very, very, very blue because of the unions. But I mean, if the union workers are all coming out and going, yeah, like it doesn't matter if he's not, pro fucking union rights and healthcare. If the company we work for that that does business goes out of business, then we can't work anyway. Which exactly. So right now I can't like Wisconsin and this is just my personal gut. I think Wisconsin's a relatively solid red. Minnesota is a strong lean towards Trump. That's how I would probably put it. I just wonder. I think Colorado's like their own weird form of blue. But I mean, another thing, man. It's something else. Where we are right now, it is 311 to 227. Because personally, I think Trump gets basically the entire Midwest for the most part. Like I think Missouri will probably go to him. He probably won't get Colorado. I don't think there's no way he's getting Illinois. No, he's not going to get Illinois. I mean, actually, there's a path. He did pardon the former Illinois governor
that was very popular in the state.
Mm-hmm.
One of those like Democrats that is much more closely aligned with Trump than they are Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
So I that one still has been like, that's the state that didn't elect Lincoln and instead elected a Democrat in the 1858 election. So they've been blue since then, other than like Reagan.
Ooh, Douglas. Mm-hmm.
Reagan and what's Nixon, right? So I'm gonna say that that's still probably safely blue.
It's gonna be it's trending blue. I'm not gonna be shocked. Here's the thing: most of these states outside of California, Washington, Oregon, New York, and a couple of the northeastern states, I'm not gonna be shocked, in Colorado, obviously, but I'm not gonna be shocked if the ones that are leaning blue, are gonna flip for Trump. I'm not gonna be shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked if Virginia swapped. Hell, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if New York swapped.
And that's and that's the thing.
Because they're like the minority vote that wins the Democrats, blue. It has been saying collectively like fuck Joe Biden,
or not even like they don't even. The thing is like the truth is too, the big reason why Biden probably not going to win is because no one's voting. And it's not even the fact that they're voting against him; they're just not voting.
Well, I think that's a big thing that right now that people are kind of underestimating. The Democrats already shot their shot with all of the mail-in votes that they did.
Mm-hmm.
More Democrats are afraid to go out in person than Republicans are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the lines, like the people that are going to need to go out, like this is why I think Trump will, like even with record voter turnout, could even get the popular vote, is because the vote that the Democrats that need to come out tomorrow to make the popular vote go their way are probably not, because of the lines and the absolute fuckery that's been happening in New York and Michigan and all that stuff, but the Trump supporters will crawl over broken glass to vote for him. There's, I just don't see it.
Well, the truth is too the Democrats, if they're going to win, they needed high voter turnout. That's always been the truth.
Because they operate with low information voters,
and above all else, exactly. And the specific low information voters that they wanted were youth that were very uninformed, young people who were just turning 18 to get their first time to vote, and then minorities. And every single minority group is either not coming out or they're coming out and voting for Trump. I mean, Trump. I think
Trump won't even approach 50-50, but if he gets 20%, he wins of the minority vote. Of the black vote.
Some stats I was looking at were like 15-16%. I mean, truth is he's probably gonna get close. He's gonna be in the teens, and that's gonna be insane for a Republican.
The old saying was that if a Republican gets 14% of the black vote, or if they can garner 14% general support, that they would not lose an election until that changed.
And he's going to probably, at least, if not come close to that, probably hit that for this election. That's fascinating to me. And
anyway, what you're saying? I was just going to say, right now we're at 321-217.
Yeah, and I like, and the truth is, and again, I just here's how I look at it. I think a lot of the solid blue states are going to stay solid blue. California, Washington, Oregon.
I think in those states you're going to have a lot of. So the Electoral College, in essence, does tend to reduce voter turnout when it comes to presidential elections.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with the enthusiasm that people have for Trump, that those states will see historic levels of Republicans actually coming out to vote.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with a lot of the things that are on the ballot right now in states like Washington and California. So, I'm registered a Washington voter, right? One of the things that's on the ballot is this absolutely absurd tax on the the airline industry, not the airline industry, the plane manufacturing industry.
Mm-hmm.
And Boeing already basically said, "Nah, fuck that, we're leaving, and we're just going to consolidate in South Carolina." Which in Boeing, outside of like is like the old school major industry in Washington. So I think there could possibly be like a high level of turnout for pushback in states, and then in California, Prop 15, 16, 22, and 25 are gigantic because they deal with these massive levels of property tax, the civil rights one, and the whole freelancer and all that kind of stuff once. So I think you're going to see a lot of people that might normally be like, whatever, we're not going to win the election, that are going to come out and go, nah, fuck that, dude. What? And vote. So while they'll still be blue, they'll be less blue than what we're used to seeing.
Oh, yeah.
The only states that I think that could swap that we have here, realistically, is New Mexico and Nevada.
New Mexico, Nevada.
Yeah, so
Virginia's probably not, but I'm not going to be shocked. And I think probably one of the northeastern states, there might be a possibility of that happening.
That for me, that one's New Hampshire. That one's New Hampshire. But best case scenario. So New Mexico, like if they don't have the oil and gas industry, they don't have a state. Right, so I lived there for a year, right? So the state population is centralized around Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and those Albuquerque is incredibly poor. Like there's some stats that for like every dollar of that people, like the average person earns, the state averages $1.2 being received from the state government. So there was in like 2017, 2016, something like that, there was a state referendum on like their own version of the climate accords to change everything off of it and to reduce whatever. Well, the state overwhelmingly voted against it, and then the Democrat governor of that state went and said, "No, we're doing it anyway." So I think there's a huge possibility, especially because when I was there was also a very utterly gigantic Trump rally when I was there in the state. To me, there's a possibility after the last debate with the whole, I'm going to end we're going to work away from oil and gas. Like, well, if you work away from oil and gas, New Mexico's no longer a state. It collapses.
I also think.
Was that?
I also think like a lot of states tend to vote similarly too. So basically, I think if Texas and Arizona are kind of voting in the same Republican way, I'm pretty sure New Mexico could trend in that direction too.
Well, New Mexico is has been blue they had Gary Johnson, so I guess they haven't been always blue, but to me, they could swap, Nevada could swap. And then Colorado, too, also has a huge oil and gas industry. So, like, best case scenario, they might go red, but I doubt it. Like, this is in reality, I think we're looking at a, utterly best case scenario for Trump. Like, the most realistic one with, like, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin staying with him, but Minnesota, Illinois, Colorado, New Mexico, all those staying. I really think we're looking at about like a 300-ish to 200, 230s, 240s contest. But like the utterly best case scenario, just because of everything, is that Minnesota goes red as well, New Mexico because the oil and gas, Colorado because the oil and gas, Nevada because it looks like there's a possibility, and then even Illinois because Chicago people going, bro, we're voting for the law and order guy because these riots destroyed our town. It is very, very possible. If you're like trying to swing for the fences for him to take that, and that would put him at 361.
I think that's probably the best case scenario for Trump, though. It's about 360, 361.
I think most likely because of Democrat fuckery, we're looking at 310, 306, similar to last time.
Mm-hmm. And well, because I look at it this way too, he's going to do better than he did last in 2016 electoral votes. I just believe he will. He's going to win. I think for the most part, he's going to win just about every single state for the most part that he won in 2016, plus at least one or two more for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And then plus or minus Pennsylvania, obviously, but he'll come to the same electoral votes. And
if he gets if we go back to this. Sorry, I'm resetting my map. If he gets Michigan and Wisconsin, he doesn't need Pennsylvania.
Oh no, yeah. Then and that's why I'm probably thinking that's probably what's going to happen. But I think I would say right now there's probably about 75% chance he gets all three, and the only one he wouldn't get is Pennsylvania due to the insane voter 3 days after kind of thing going on there.
Yeah, I mean Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. I'm if he gets those with the other states we talked about, because North Carolina's going for him, Florida, Georgia, they're going for him, Arizona, going for him. But I mean, even if he doesn't get Arizona, doesn't get North Carolina, if he gets his good states, Florida, and then those three, he wins.
It's just for Biden, it's just such an uphill battle because it
really is, and it's because national polls don't mean shit.
Yeah, they don't, and here it's kind of funny because if I'm gonna be 100% honest, I feel like he probably would have had a better chance if there was no COVID and they didn't really go all in COVID.
If there was no COVID, this would be
much closer.
There would be utterly no question.
Mm-hmm.
If we just experienced the riots this year, there would be no question.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I definitely think our COVID response was way worse than the media vividly, lyingly, utterly hit. Just nothing has cemented for me the absolute utter corruption of the media than the COVID response, because they literally went 1 week saying, "Oh, A is really good, it's great," and when you had Newsom and Cuomo and Murphy all going, "The president's doing a great job, he's really helping us out," and then as soon as we got things under control, the media in a week went, "A is really bad," and then Cuomo, "Trump didn't do anything for us," as he's covering up the number of people that he directly caused to die by ordering people into nursing. I'm sorry. People like Murphy, the one chick from Michigan, and Cuomo need to be put on trial after this over going against the orders of doctors and putting COVID patients in nursing homes.
Yeah, no, just makes sense. It is what it is.
Let's jump to the Senate. You want to jump to the Senate?
Yeah. What is your prediction first for the Senate?
Okay, so let's look at the states that are up. Reset this map. I think what I'm seeing on this thing is absolutely garbage. It's got 49 Republican or Democrat, 46 Republican, and there's 5 toss-ups. Okay, well, Montana is not a toss-up. That's going red. Arizona. The guy that's running against McSally is avidly anti-2A. And with how much I definitely think they're going to go for... Trafalgar has McSally yet. So, and they're the one polling group that, like I've said, I trust them because not only did they get 2016 right, but they also got 2018 right.
Okay, it wasn't McSally, I would probably say 2 weeks ago. It's probably McSally mainly because of the Trump bump. I think Trump's going to help push her across the finish line. I think because what is it I forgot what it was. I think Trump is probably 5 points up in Arizona, and McSally's probably about 3 points behind.
They still have her going blue, but I doubt it.
but I think she's probably going to just be pushed forward into.
I mean, because in this day and age when people are like, "Fuck you, China." So my dad lives over in Arizona, and they are getting inundated with these political ads, which are great. Which is how that guy, who's an astronaut, the guy she's running against, when he went to the International Space Station, didn't unfurl the American flag; he unfurled the Chinese flag. So
interesting.
he's I mean, hell. What's that one? Not Neil Armstrong, but the other guy that landed on the moon, Buzz Aldrin.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was him or some other famous astronaut that actually came out and endorsed her over him. So I think Arizona is going blue. I mean red. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Colorado, yeah, that's going blue. Mm-hmm. You know, highly doubt that that's going to go red because the Colorado Democrats have actually been doing a good job in that state. They passed criminal justice reform. The sentiment in that state is very much like, well, our Democrats are doing good stuff. Iowa, they've got they still have this as a toss-up because of some stupid polls before, but this is going red.
Yeah, it's going to go red. I don't doubt that.
Michigan, like we've already talked about, like Michigan, I don't think it's going blue. I think it's going to go red with the Trump bump. Minnesota, now that's one where I totally see the people in that state going, we're going to vote for Trump for president. We're going to vote for the Democrat in the Congress. So I see that them now. I looked at this guy that has gets real deep into polls and historical polls, and he pointed out that that every time that there's an incumbent there that doesn't get 50% on the polling, they lose, and the incumbent there doesn't have 50% on the polling. So. But I still, the Midwest and up places like that, or the Rust Belt, they are very much the type of people that will vote different at the top of the ballot than at the bottom. So I'm going to leave that one blue. That leaves Maine, kind of thing. Maine's going to go red.
Maine's going to go red. All right. I just think that just historically, Maine, at the very least, like it basically just seems like northeastern Trump country. I just think of Stephen King and all the all the towns and shit there. You know what I'm saying?
Which one? What's the state abbreviation for Maine? Is it MN
or it ME? Is ME?
ME, yeah. So let's look at ME. They have the party right now. Yeah, it's red, and let's say it's a toss-up. So I think in this year that'll go red. So we're already at 51 to 47. But then where it's really going to be is Georgia. So Georgia, I think, has the possibility of going 1-2 or 1-1. One of their senators has been running an absolutely god-awful campaign. Mm-hmm. So if let's go 1-1 there. Then the last one that I think is up for grabs, North Carolina on here. They have it at blue, but that's going red with Trump.
Yes.
And then the other states that we haven't touched that could be in question. We've already talked about why I think New Mexico has the slight possibility of voting for Trump because of the oil and gas comments. I don't to probably a little bit of a reach. Oregon, blue as shit. Illinois, blue. That like we said, you're absolutely swinging for the fences on that one. Mm-hmm. One state that I think has a chance is New Hampshire because the gal there has been running a really good campaign this year of going red. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and a lot of this is because of just the absolute, like New Hampshire is the live free or die state. I'm pretty sure it's either them or Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure that's kind of a toss up. with that one, in my opinion. But even then, we're still at 53-46 with one toss-up. So I kind of see the Republicans coming out of this with, in reality, a net gain. But it's very possible. So like the ones that I'm sure of, Iowa, Montana, Arizona, even if Democrats win Maine and one of the Georgia, I mean, it's very, we could come out of this with a 50-50 split.
Mm-hmm.
Except for or just being 51-49 with Michigan going for Trump, because I think they're likely to.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll
I agree with
that's and then the House interactive map. I don't give a shit about the House. To be frank, I think it's going to be in Democrat hands.
I think worst case for the Republicans is that they make gains, but nowhere near enough to even come close to really getting any dent to that majority of the Democrats.
I think there's a couple of the toss-ups that used to be Republican in California that are going to go back. I think the southern Minnesota is going to go to them. There's a toss-up in, let's see, all these toss-ups. I think stuff in Texas that's a toss-up is going to go red. Same thing in Oklahoma and Arkansas. Illinois toss-up. If it's a toss-up, I'm going to take it red just because I think Trump's. Which I saw 7 toss-ups. God, some of these are like
I
think tiny.
Well, I would put it to you this way: some of the Democrat states and strongholds, they might have a couple of Republicans that might turn. I'm not going to be shocked there. Washington, Oregon, California. I think California's 24th district in particular, I think, was really interesting. I forgot what was happening there. I only briefly looked at it.
I think I don't think the Republicans are going to take the House just because of California.
There is a very strong path for them to hypothetically take the House, but that's really.
I think a couple of these things in Florida are going to swap for them.
Yeah,
but Buddy, you scared the shit out of me. What's up? Are you going to bed?
Yeah.
All right, I love you. I'm doing my predictions with Jacob.
Yeah.
All right, I love you, sweetie. I'll be in a little bit.
That's adorable. I guess what I'm just trying to say is
there is a strong chance that that they take it.
But they need everything. They need everyone to go out, and they need votes. They need votes, fam. But it's possible.
I think it's a possibility because some people. It is remarkable how unlike Nancy Pelosi is.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, people are looking at her. Even the people that went on CNN. She went on CNN and got torn up by Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer for not accepting the stimulus bill that Trump was saying, yeah, okay, let's do it. So, I mean, if CNN them are tearing your rear end up, I think it's a strong possibility that, if the Republicans don't win the House, I think they'll surprise and win. And win some seats, so it's real close. So that's just me.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I like I said, Republicans will make gains. I just don't know how much. That's just going to be completely up to, just how many people fucking come out and actually vote. So we'll have to see, brother. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, and here's another interesting one: is the governors.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow. Are these all really toss-ups? Well, that's got all of them as a toss-up. What? What?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for the governorship, I think it just depends.
Oh, never mind. That was live results. Like the only things that I think are going to be different than what this thing says is Montana. God, I can't wait for I love election day. So governor interactive map, not election result. I think Montana's going to go red, and I think North Carolina maybe, just because of the Trump bump. So I definitely think Washington. I don't know. I voted for not for Inslee in Washington. So, I also know Democrats that are going. I'm voting for Trump and the Republicans this time. So, we'll see. We'll see.
I hear most of those stories, man. I'm telling you. I just
I feel it in my heart of hearts that Trump will win and the Republicans will gain in the Senate. But the Democrats keep the House. Even though against like literally everything that we're looking at as far as polling.
I mean, that's just what's probably going to happen. So it'll just be status quo effectively from 2018 and on. But like I said, it just depends, man. I think at the very least, there's going to be a shit ton more voters than last year last year in 2016. So there'll probably be like, God, probably close to 145 million people voting. So, and then I'm pretty sure Trump will probably get like 75 million of them, and then Biden will probably get the rest, maybe, or probably a little bit more. I don't know. We'll have to see, man. We'll have to see. You still there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just looking at a couple silly prediction maps of people being dumb, where they like flipped all of the red and blue states.
Just all red.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Geez, man, this one is like I've normally never like I feel like two things. Like if Biden wins, there's two things that we could potentially see. So far, they've been telling everybody quietly that nothing will fundamentally change. This is why Wall Street at a scale of 5-1 donates to Biden right now. But because of the thing that Kamala Harris just released the video today, I don't know if you saw that, but it talked about it was the whole equity instead of equality conversation for equality of outcome instead of equity. I mean, it even had liberals who are going, "Shit, I voted for you guys. What the hell are you talking about? That's communism." Right? Like losing their like freaking out, like, dude, that is literally Marxism in a prettier shell. Because equality of outcome is Marxism in a prettier shell. Right? That is modern day phrase for from each according to their ability to each according to their means. It's very possible that either we see the return to Obama era bullshit where they just kind of kowtow to China, or we see this like socialist insurrection in the presidency, and that what they were saying was full of shit, and that Trump and the Republicans were right. But I also kind of think the first one is much more likely, even with what I think Kamala Harris may have just released that as a way to try and get the socialists to come on board. Because the Biden administration has on board all of the Republicans that got us into the Iraq War. Colin Powell, those kind of people. They're putting very corporate people up for cabinet positions to where the point where like AOC and them are going, no, you aren't. No, Senate, don't let him do it. And if he wins, it's either going to be a return to whatever normalcy BS, and then he's gonna fumble it, and they're gonna like once people actually see, oh, he's really dumb. Jesus, that economy that we had and those our taxes went up. Shit. Wow, companies are leaving. The manufacturing jobs are shutting back down. Then I think 2018, 2022, and 2024 are just going to be a vapid swing back the other way to somebody, to whoever Trump's successor is going to be. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I think we're going to go back to trying to treat the symptom instead of the disease under Biden. Whereas with Trump, I think we're going to go back to treating the disease instead of just the symptoms. So, I don't think, I don't know. We'll see with the riots tomorrow too. There's going to be riots.
Yay.
So we'll see how that turns out, because if Antifa comes out and like beats people off of polling stations, and Biden wins, Trump is going to be able to be like, dude, no, voter intimidation. We need to do this again. And when all the videos come out, if it happens, of Antifa and them coming in and intimidating people, I think it's going to be. I think there's a reason why they've waited that they've waited to do bullshit, and I think they're going to try and pull something, especially in cities tomorrow. So I really hope that the whole law enforcement is out and ready, and that you get police chiefs that tell governors and shit to fuck off and do their job and protect elections.
I'm gonna keep I've been so out of it lately. I think I've just been enjoying life, and tomorrow I'm really gonna be excited to see what happens. We'll see.
Yeah, it's gonna be super interesting, man.
Life is quite beautiful, but you know what? Whatever happens, happens. I'll put it to you this way: I've been a lot more optimistic lately than I've been in a while. So I feel pretty good. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it in my absolute I feel it that they're gonna win. I really do. But I also think that we need to continue to. Oh my god, I'm watching a video right now of a Trump train that is the Amish buggies. Pennsylvania. Dude. I think there's I think this is gonna bring to light to a lot of people the absolute dumb fuckery that happens with Democrats and all of that stuff. So,
and just being lied to and stuff. I got you.
Well, I mean, they just we never cease to see it because we saw it live in Virginia. They get power, they change laws, they change the petitioning laws, they change other voting laws, they start to get rid of voter ID and election security, and it's always all under the guise of, anti-voter suppression. And I'm sorry, but we're the only Western nation that doesn't have limits on things, and makes people have a civic duty of you're going to prove who you are with an ID. Even Canada, fucking Canada has voter ID laws, Yeah. But they also have it you can't mail in a ballot more than a week before the election if you're going to mail it in. That way, they're counted on election day. So everybody can say all they want about Republican voter suppression, and I'm sure in areas, the really racist areas in the South, that has happened. That probably does happen. And that's something that needs to be addressed and fixed. But things like cleaning out the voter rolls so that dead people and people who have moved aren't still on it is something that is a no-brainer to me. there's things like requiring people to have a voter ID, and then having a system so that said person with a voter ID can't go from poll to poll to poll, should be a thing. I don't like ballot harvesting. I don't like how we saw those videos of Project Veritas of this person who it's very maybe legal, maybe not legal, going around and changing people's votes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that affects both Republicans and Democrats. I just think it affects the Democrats more. Because that person on the Project Veritas thing is a Republican paying, this chick to vote, have all the Democrats be voted for except for him, and he would get voted for.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff, if we want a democracy, people need to function and engage in a democracy and show civic duty. If you're not going to engage in the civic process, for the rest of it, then you shouldn't be, you don't get it's a participation trophy thing. If you're not paying attention and you're not engaged, you shouldn't, not that you don't have the right to, but you shouldn't be voting if you don't know what actually is going on. So yeah, some of this stuff it's man.
I feel you.
Yeah.
All
anyway,
right.
I've ranted a lot. Like, what's your big takeaway? Like, what happens if Biden wins?
Just status quo. If anything, it's just going to be Kamala. She's just going to end up taking over, and it's going to be a whole constitutional crisis. And
2 years and 1 day in, Article 25 is going to get engaged.
I think
2 years. 2 years and 1 day in.
I'd argue it's going to be a lot sooner than that. To be quite honest,
it's going to be 2 years and 1 day, because that way she did not spend enough time as president in the first term, so she gets to run 2 more times.
Ah, smart. I gotcha.
I think that they are going to wait until it's politically expedient if they win.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 years and a little bit in, she's going to be calling the shots regardless.
Mm-hmm.
2 years, she was the anointed one.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, you see this with the DNC. For as long as I can remember, they have anointed somebody. That's why Hillary Clinton somehow beat Obama beat Hillary Clinton, and Bernie lost to Hillary Clinton. So, they let the presence of a process happen. So it's like, oh wow, our anointed one really got their ass kicked, which is what happened to Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can have the appearance of the thing, but if it's close, they pull the strings, just like how Obama pulled all the moderates out, so Biden would win.
All right, I feel you. What happens happens.
What do you think the likelihood of the socialist stuff is?
Not really. Look, if he does go through with it, it's just going to be only because of just the amount of people that are going to be elected. And not even elected. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen. I think once the Democrats take power and take back control, they're just going to probably renege on a whole bunch of different things and just try to manipulate and control the media, and then just go more deep into that. And then it will be, it will be full on 1984. So,
Well, I mean, I think with one of the things we're seeing, the amount of sway that the Democrats have with the media would make Joseph Goebbels be envious.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh man, we freaking Godwin did this. I was trying not to, but the amount of power and the absolute absurdity of the American media outside of Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, and Tucker Carlson. So, which, there is very much something to be said that Glenn Greenwald, the guy that broke the Snowden reports, looks at, quit his job because he says the media has become so utterly corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
It just really shows you. I think that's going to be historically significant.
I'm telling you, man. It's just, we're already there. And I mean, people realize this and they see this. And then when Trump gets elected, I think, the first time it might have just been a bit of an outlier, but 2 times in a row, you can't hide that. You just can't. So we'll see what happens.
No, but I hope that if he wins, all of these media outlets and these polling companies just utterly take a tank, and then the Republicans, like, I don't necessarily think they're the lesser of two evils, but I think that they're going to be heavily shooting themselves in the foot if they don't fully embrace Trumpism. And go for protected trade and go for reforming 230 and all of that kind of stuff.
I will say that if the House goes back to the Republicans and a lot of these new Republicans get voted in, things will actually probably change, and I'd probably feel a little more confident about that. So, but that's just me. All right, I think that's a pretty good episode. Pretty good.
All right. Yeah. Let's wrap it up.
All right, later, guys, and hope you have a great election day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode of Fat White Guy Rants. Yay!
Booyah. Eat biscuits, everybody.